Don't worry, Rob was totally ready for this week's podcast. This is Corey, and this is the O The Anthem podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Rob. Welcome to episode 340 of the O The Anthem podcast, coming to you from the hashtag OTA LA studios, high above the 110 freeway in downtown Los Angeles, California. Thank you for joining us.
Yes. Thank you for listening on your podcatcher of choice. The easiest way, anchor.fm/O The Anthem. You go there, you find the direct link to the app that you like to use the most. Really, the easiest way to do it.
And don't forget, we are available on video every single week. Not only do we record live every single week on Monday, but you'll find the episode live on YouTube every Tuesday.
Indeed, indeed. We start this week in Michigan. You all right?
100% ready. 100% ready for today's episode.
We start this week in Michigan, where Governor Gretchen Whitmer was at the center of a kidnapping plot that the FBI was able to put the kibosh on. And basically, 13 people have now been arrested in the plot to kidnap the governor. And I was just reading over some of the details, finer details of the story, and this shit is crazy. Basically, a bunch of guys sort of met. If you remember correctly, there was a bunch of armed men showed up at the Michigan State House once the shutdown order started.
Yes, of course.
And
aren't we all ready for the episode today?
All of us. Collectively, all of us.
Yes, but there are a bunch of armed men showed up at the Michigan State House.
And
as
couple
you do.
of them. Yeah.
Wait, let me guess. Were they a diverse group of all different races?
No, mostly white guys. Mostly white men. But they members of the group who showed up were the Wolverine Watchmen, who is a...
Okay, no, but seriously, what was their group name?
The Wolverine Watchmen.
Yeah, that was really it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that they went, like me, I'm sure they went by something online that was very straightforward, like Robert N. Cheek. That was their call sign.
Well, they couldn't decide whether or not they liked Wolverine or the Watchmen more, so they decided to just... No,
put it
that's
together.
not why.
Yeah.
That's not at all why they did that.
No.
They met in the basement of a vacuum shop several times to discuss their plot. They left their cell phones outside so that nobody could record, but somebody was wearing a wire, so there was that.
Turns out the feds were there.
Yeah, so they knew about that plan. Basically, that one was around them literally just grabbing her and then taking her away and holding a kangaroo court trial where they find her guilty of treason. Mm-hmm. And then because the punishment for treason is death, they would kill her. So that was part of the plan. There was also another version where they were looking for blowing up her boat at the lake house that she lives at,
her
a vacation
boat.
house.
At
yeah,
her lake house. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So they went there in a 3-car caravan and took videos and notes about what and what couldn't be detected by the police. They figured they were going to need to spend $4,000 on explosives to blow up the bridge that would keep the police from getting there to put out the fire on the boat. There's just a whole lot of stuff that is going to be troubling when they get to court and are trying to explain why they were not part of a conspiracy to abduct the governor, to kidnap the governor.
There was less planning for the 9/11 attacks than there was for this.
Yeah.
Those guys were like, planes, okay, here's the buildings you're looking at. Now you have to learn to fly. The most complicated part of that plan was like, learn to take off and fly a plane.
Yeah.
Do you need to learn to land? Nope, not part of the plan. All right, fair enough. These guys and by the way, if you wrote in a script that a bunch of overweight, middle-aged white guys met in a vacuum shop basement to start a conspiracy, the notes on the first act, you're like, okay, listen, it's a bit much. It's
a little too on the nose. Yes. They also, after the initial conversation at the vacuum shop, they went to one of the guy's house, and he lives way out way in the sticks. Mm-hmm. Apparently, no traffic lights, but 3 churches in this town. Behind his prefab house with the Confederate flag and the Trump banner, they took target practice to prepare themselves for when they would have to abduct the governor.
Did they use her image on any of the targets?
I don't know. There wasn't I didn't read about that specifically, but I'm sure that's one of those things that come up in court. And it's just like,
I did see.
Well, why did State Exhibit A? Why is this the target you choose to use? A picture of Gretchen Whitmer.
I did see the 3 waste management dumpsters outside of his house, though, by the way, which is classy.
Yeah.
So, it's we talked about it in the pre-show meeting, but to anyone who is uber surprised about this, you shouldn't have been. white militias in Michigan, not a new thing. Michigan has been a strong militia state since before it was a state, essentially. But in 1992, I think most specifically, Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols, who would later become the bombers for the Alfred P. Murrah building in Oklahoma City, actually joined up with a militia in Michigan. I believe, if I remember correctly, that McVeigh met them outside of Ruby Ridge, and they said, "Hey, if you're ever in the area, come and you can join our militia."
Like selling like bumper stickers of
Yes, that would be what he was doing.
Yeah.
And the Turner Diaries, which if you haven't read that, it's an interesting read. So then he went out there and joined them, and in fact, so he learned some explosives in the Army, but apparently he honed his explosive skills with the Michigan militia, where he was. And look, you're not going to teach somebody to build a 4,500-pound bomb in the militia, but what you can do is teach them how to build a 100-pound bomb and then scale up.
That's just do it a bunch more times.
Once you know how to do a 100-pound bomb, and it's like, all right, so I'm going to have to make a real big version of this. How would I do that? Okay, well, economies of scale. Let's figure out how to scale it up from there.
Yeah. So, obviously, I think we can all be happy that the FBI was able to get in on this plot and stop it. There was certainly a ramping up with Election Day on the corner. They said they had to do it before Election Day, which was like a new... Yeah. It was sort of like an open plan without a set date before. And then Election Day started coming around, and they're just like, we got to get on this before November 3rd. And that's when the FBI had to go in and take care of it. I think what bothers me the most, and this is something that was kind of on the periphery of my fears coming in and is now right up at the forefront, is that Trump has been using very incendiary language with his supporters to sort of make it seem like they have to be more of an active participant in making sure that the vote is not, rigged or crooked or whatever he wants to claim it is. During the debate specifically, he was talking about polls in Philadelphia, which weren't even open at the time, and saying that you need to send people in there and make sure that they're doing it by the book and stuff like that, which is just an invitation for whack jobs wearing MAGA hats to go running into polling places and assume that they're getting kicked out because they're not allowed to see the inside scoop. For people who want to be poll watchers, it's an actual position you can get.
Yep.
You sign up for it, and then you stay at the polling place all day, and you make sure that no impropriety goes on, and that's how it works. So,
well, that would have been nice for the president to describe.
If you want to sign up and be one, I'm sure they need some, because they're having a harder time getting people to work at polls right now because of COVID and all. But
usually it's the older generation that goes and does that, and they're not going to do it because the risk is very high for them. So.
Yeah, but you also can't, as a poll watcher, you have to sort of be a independent figure in this whole thing. You are only supposed to be mentioning things that are clearly in violation of the law in some sort of way.
No, they do have, each party is allowed to have one.
Yeah.
So you are allowed to go as a party participant, but you can't wear your MAGA hat or your MAGA t-shirt. It's
nor are you allowed to wear that to most polling places. Yeah,
you can't go vote with a Joe Biden t-shirt on.
Yeah.
By the way, I ran for office. I wore my own polo to the polls.
Yeah.
And didn't realize it because I had an event right before I went to vote and walked into the polls, and they're like, nah, can't do that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I should know better than that.
All the signs that say no electioneering.
No electioneering,
this
but
point. Yeah.
I've been wearing this polo all the time, so I'm like, okay, I'll go put a t-shirt on in the car.
Yeah.
But again, it was 2006, not 2016, so I didn't make a huge stink on my way out the door.
I'm really starting to get worried that we are going to have violence from Trump supporters on Election Day or leading up to Election Day, and at this point, knowing that the FBI actively stopped a kidnapping plot of a governor, I'm concerned that there will be more violence towards everyday Americans that will occur as well. And I don't want to be the person who says it, and I really was like trying to think of this in terms of like, I didn't even necessarily want to bring it up during the debate because it's one of those comments that it's best left alone.
Everybody knows what he said. He knows what he said. Yeah.
I mean, like I made the ploy, like, if somebody said like, Well, the worst example of a shooting that would take care, would kill a lot of people would be this exact situation, this specific situation that's never been done before. You could kill thousands of people. It'd be a place where it's locked up and you could just start spraying and nobody would be there to save you. And then somebody hears about that example that is made up of taking out place A with a shooting, and then they go and do that because you've given them the idea to do it now.
Did I ever tell you the story of why I got suspended the one time I got suspended in high school?
No.
So in honors English, our school was under construction, and this was 3 years post Columbine. And so it fresh on everybody's mind, school shootings. For those of you who are more recently in high school than Corey and I, that was not a thing. 98 Columbine kicked off this whole rash of we could just go shoot up the school. Okay, let's do that. So we were under construction, and they had limited access. They were literally like arrows. Go this way to go around the school so that everybody's moving in the same direction. And a bunch of kids in honors English that I was in with, we were super bored, and we realized that this was dangerous. So we sat down and wrote a plan that if someone was going to shoot up the school, how could they get the most casualties? With the plan of going and presenting this to the principal to say, here are 40 things you could easily fix. The lunchroom has 1 entrance and 1 exit, and we went from 4 lunches to 2. That means half of the school is in a lunchroom with 1 exit.
Yeah.
You wait 20 minutes after the bell rings, walk into the doorway, and I could just drop a bag full of ammunition and fire, reload, fire, which I think is the example I used in the document.
Yeah.
Anyway, so apparently someone overheard us talking about this, and
there was concern.
They found the document where 12 young white men were sitting around in honors English talking about what would be a more effective way of killing people in our school. So as a point, they had a zero tolerance policy.
Yeah.
So we got suspended, which then got rescinded after the fact because I then drove to the Board of Education, walked into the superintendent's office and demanded a meeting where I explained, it seems really stupid of you to suspend the 10 or 12 of us and not address the 40 issues we brought up in the document you're suspending us for. I would almost take the suspension if you said, listen, we have to do this. But also, these are some really excellent points, and we should address this.
Yes.
You basically said, we're suspending you guys, and put this in the drawer, and then I believe my mom threatened to call the news. And then they were like, all right, so we're going to undo all the suspensions. You basically got a day off of school for free. You can't go on your senior trip, which turned out it was canceled because we went to New York.
Yeah.
Something else happened that fall that got in the way of that.
Kept the trip from happening as planned.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I also lost my parking pass the last week of school.
No.
So my grandmother had to pick me up from school the last week. That was awesome.
I'm just.
Oh, that reminded me. I have a question for you. My question.
Oh,
my
God.
surprise. Are we? Yes. Put the camera on him, Roberto. Oh, by the way, a big thank you to Roberto for joining us again as producer. He did an all right job last time, so we have him back. Okay.
Middling at best.
So I'm going to describe a scenario to you, Corey, and I want you to identify the scenario. A group of Americans feel as though their elected officials are not listening to them, not honoring their requests, and so rather than seeking judicial relief or using the electoral process to change things, they instead take up arms, plan violence against those elected leaders, and have the plan broken up by government officials. Who does that sound like to you?
I mean,
we could say the Wolverine Watchman.
Yeah.
It certainly is the Wolverine Watchman. But what if I told you that is almost word for word yet another story from another group, and when I say their name, I guarantee you'll recognize them.
Okay, go ahead.
Sons of Liberty. Do you know who the Sons of Liberty are?
No.
Oh, they were led by a gentleman whose name is John Adams. Patrick Henry was a member.
Yeah.
John Hancock, also a member.
Yes, now I remember.
Okay, yeah. So, what is the difference between Boogaloo Bob or whatever, and John Hancock and Sam Adams and Paul Revere?
I think the main difference that you would come across here
You're
is
British
that,
in this example. That's what.
Yeah.
You're British, so
right.
you're siding
trying
with
to create the new government.
You're siding
and,
with the king. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm saying the main difference here is that if you are trying to free yourself from the government construct in which you are currently set in, right? Say we all agree, like a plurality of Americans agree, that the government we currently have is not working and we need to change it.
Okay.
And, again, just for an example, because we don't have anything better, let's just go to the House of Lords and House of Commons kind of version of a Congress instead and a prime minister and blah, blah, blah. We say that's more fair. If the plurality of people want to change the government that we currently have, and the government stands in the way of doing that, then we have legal protections in which to do that. That's part of...
Do we?
We don't have the right to overthrow the government?
Well, I don't know, because
we have the rights to create militia and to...
Republicans haven't won a popular vote since 1988, so...
That's not true.
No, they have not won a popular vote since 1988.
But W won the second one, and HW... that was 88. Yeah,
88 was HW?
Yeah.
And I think that...
W won it the second time.
Okay, so I'm sorry,
Over
2006.
Kerry. Yeah.
So it's only been 14 years, not 20 or 30
I
years.
mean, there were only 2 other elections in that time. So 2 out of 4, yes, the Republican didn't win the popular vote. But again, there's part of the reason why they were fighting to form their own government and break free of the crown is because we wanted more direct say in the way that the government operated. And we basically created a form of government that would allow for that kind of ability to do so if it got to that point.
So let me push this example a little further, though.
Yeah.
What percentage of the American population supported the War for Revolution when the Sons of Liberty started their violent acts in 1772?
Not a plurality.
Not nearly a plurality. In fact, 3%, which is why 3%ers call themselves 3%ers, because they believe they are the vanguard 3% that will drive the new American Revolution. So, I mean, you're asking for a plurality, but we didn't have a plurality when we began our journey as a country.
No.
The city of Boston essentially did what these Wolverine Watchmen planned to do. They kidnapped the governor of Massachusetts. They put him on a boat and sent him back to England.
Yeah.
And then he got there, and the king said, "What are you doing here? Go back."
Right.
And he refused to, so they appointed a new governor. But all of that happened.
Yeah.
That is how our country was founded.
Yeah.
So why is this bad and that good? Why do we look and honor that? Is it just a matter of you're British now, using the same example, so this is a bad thing?
No, I think that there's a incredible difference between colonization and sort of an independent operating government, which is the differences between these two times. Like
Americans had far more representation in Parliament than the average American has right now. There are 1 million people.
There were less Americans then too.
Yeah, there are 1 million people in the colonies, and they had like 7 representatives in Parliament.
Yeah.
So that's a way less than 420,000, which is what your congressman represents.
Right, but the crown also had influence over what our
the crown levied 3% taxes.
Yeah.
Now we pay 40% taxes. On
Unbelievable.
average.
Yeah, I know.
So I mean, where does this example break that you say it's different now than it was then? Or is it just because we're Americans, so Sons of Liberty okay, but don't continue the revolution? Because what that sounds like to me is just anti-revolutionary rhetoric, that the revolution is great, but only as it goes this far. We can't go any further than that.
I guess if I hate this, but if there are people who wish to overthrow the government, the legal right to do so exists within the law.
It does.
At a certain point, you're going to run up against a force bigger than you. So you better have a lot of people behind you or a generalized heavy hand over the people that you are trying to overthrow.
So I said all of that to say this, which is really the only point, and we can move on to the next topic. Should the 13 members of the Wolverine Watchmen not face trial.
No, they should absolutely. You can't.
That, however,
You can't go and scope out the scene of the possible crime, including detailed notes and video, without having some sort of comeuppance on it.
So I'm guessing that these guys were an organized militia, correct?
Mm-hmm.
They had a uniform.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, they were against the government of the country in which they lived.
Yes.
Under the Geneva Convention, that makes them enemy combatants, not subject to the laws of the country in which they live. So no matter what they were planning, as long as it wasn't espionage, which it doesn't sound like it was, sounds like they were planning actions on their own.
Terrorism.
Then terrorism and freedom fighters are just two different words for the same action.
Yeah.
Based on perspective. So shouldn't these guys just be hauled off to Northern California, Nevada, San Francisco, Alabama, any place that we'd previously opened up a concentration camp, and just hold them for the rest of their lives as enemy combatants? Send them to Guantanamo Bay, for that matter. We already have a concentration camp.
I mean, at this point, you're basically talking about at what point does the if a law, it's much like having a conversation about if a law changes, or what are you doing about the people who were in violation of that law prior to the law changing?
Well, no, that's an ex post facto law. You can't create an ex post facto.
Yeah, but I'm saying like the only hope for these guys, because there are actual charges that they are facing based off of the action that they've taken. The government isn't going to give that up just because somebody makes a reasonable argument there, unless they can fight that in court. The battle is now in the courts, and that's up for their lawyers to be able to get a ruling on.
Yes, and they absolutely should listen to my advice here and plead under Article 4 of the Geneva Convention.
I mean, if they could get that through the court, then that's up to them. But I'm saying, like, the person who was busted for having an ounce of weed 30 years ago in California, who's still in jail.
Still in jail.
There's only so much you can hope for at this point, because the laws have changed, the rules have changed,
Well, and all I'll say is this: how of the 119 or so people who were held in Guantanamo Bay, how many of them had charges pressed against them?
Almost none.
119 of them had charges pressed against them. None of them were pursued at all. They were left in the charging document phase because the government said, we don't want to put them on a stand ever. We never want to have to prove the case against them. So instead, what we're going to do is put them under Article 4 of the Geneva Convention and just hold them as enemy combatants. And it seems very ironic that we do that when it's to the government's benefit, but we don't do it when it's to the benefit of the combatants. And it makes me wonder why any person that finds an American soldier on any battlefield would honor the Geneva Convention. If we don't honor it for our own citizens or people we capture in battle against us, why would anyone honor it against us?
Well, I mean, that's a problem of setting up a lot of bad examples for which people realize that we are not so bilateral on the Geneva Convention.
That is the American way, and I will not have you badmouth it, all right?
I will not have you say
way.
America doesn't follow the rules, but it expects everyone else to follow the rules.
Now it's Trump's American rules. Yes, that's Trump's American way.
See, but I mean, like, the problem is that, under the guise of what the founders have started here was part of the idea that from time to time things will not go your way. You will have people who represent things that you don't believe in. You will have a president who is not the favorite, who will be underwater in their popularity and stuff like that. And they might make decisions. A good person could make decisions that tragically impact your life in some sort of way. But the way that you are to take care of this is either vote out that person or the other more extreme version of that is the overthrow the government part.
Yeah. But I'll point to Thomas Jefferson.
But just because you have protections to that allow you to overthrow the government doesn't mean that you can't be charged if you try to do it.
Yes. By the founders, because the Geneva Convention didn't exist when they were.
Because the protections that you would get from the Constitution in order to overthrow the government is only as if it's successful. So only if you have enough people to actually physically overtake the government would you actually have protection under the law in the Constitution.
History is written by the victors.
Yeah.
But I would say that Thomas Jefferson would disagree with you. The man who wrote the Declaration of Independence.
I don't necessarily agree with Thomas Jefferson all the fucking time.
Contributor to the Constitution.
Where's he on the internet? He hasn't said anything about that. Fucking idiots, everything.
Who said that not just not just that you can petition your government for redress of grievances, and if that doesn't work, you have the right to overthrow it. He said 100% absolutely. There should be no man whose job is serving in politics, and every 20 years, all the boys from the country should come and throw them all physically out of office and create a new government every 20 years, because the intergenerational nature of government means that the people there are not serving the next generation. So the guy who wrote the Declaration of Independence, which was essentially our way of saying we're starting a revolution, said many years before Marx, many years before Lenin, said the revolution always continues. Every 20 years, new boys from the country should come and overthrow us and toss us out and kill us if necessary and put in a new government that fits what they need.
Yeah.
Continuing revolution. But, I mean, they weren't blocked by anti-revolutionaries like Corey, so unfortunately. But, again, speaking of more things that are normal in Trump's America, Amy Coney Barrett started her hearings today. And I really think the only way we could talk about this is by returning to Corey's consistent point, which is the Democrats are spineless bastards.
Yeah.
Because I'd been hearing...
Sure are.
I'd been hearing all weekend how they were going to boycott the hearings and force the Republicans to have quorum without them, which would mean bringing back at least 3 people who had been diagnosed positive with COVID in the last 14 days. Now, one of those people did show up. Mike Lee showed up. But my understanding is that 2 of the other ones didn't, because they sat in their office and saw that the Democrats showed up. So we have quorum now. Let's begin. So the hearings began today, and because we are nominating a justice to the Supreme Court, we spent all of day one talking about healthcare.
Yeah.
Because these 2 things are absolutely connected. And essentially, they were just tearing down the fact that Trump keeps talking about pre-existing conditions and doesn't have a plan to do anything about it, which has, as far as I can tell, 0 to do with Amy Coney Barrett. Now, she will be the one who tears down the ACA. That is the finality.
So yeah, I mean the argument that you can make to the American people right now is the only one is the immediacy argument. There's a case that is due to be heard by the Supreme Court right after Election Day in session, where the lawsuit that the White House has been behind to overturn the individual mandate of the ACA is up for debate in front of the court. With the conservative majority that would be afforded by Amy Coney Barrett, they are imagining that they would win this argument. Yeah. And that the people who support Obamacare, which is now higher than it has ever been at any point in history.
Yep. Well, higher than 2012 when we started Obamacare.
Right. And, you know, it's... I think the problem is that people don't... you can't say something like, you don't understand, this is going to be the court for 40 years. You could have this conservative majority for 40 years.
That's too big. They don't.
Yeah, they can't possibly think about like, oh, by the time I'm 70, this court might still be ruling on what I'm doing with my life. No, like that doesn't apply to people. You have to talk about it in terms of literally as soon as she sits on this court. If she passes right now, if she goes onto the court before Election Day, she's going to be ruling on this case.
Oh, also, and she may rule on the election case that Meg penned, which means a third of the 9 justices will be appointed by the president of the election that they are now deciding.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would mean that they would rule one way or anher.
I can't imagine, you know, when it was Bush Gore, which was which was literally just a conversation about counting and what votes counted and which ones didn't, because the vote was so razor thin in Florida.
Yep.
That they had to take it to the court, and it went by party line when it got to the court. So there is, you know, obviously the concern that if the election is so close that this will probably end up with just a party line vote and Trump will remain in is problematic enough. But then the other problem that I am dealing with right now that I am constantly going over is what kind of preposterous legal argument will be brought up to delay, to keep this thing like, you know, away, or keeping it from being the, you know, there's a way that you could see on election night when they're counting the in-person ballots where Trump is ahead.
Yes.
And by the time the mail-in vote is counted, Biden is ahead.
Yeah.
Biden has taken a humongous lead, and 340 electoral votes and stuff like that.
Just that board starts to switch as they count the mail ballots.
Exactly. So, there's going to be a lot of dirty tricks, I imagine, to eliminate ballots. There's going to be a lot of arguments as to whether or not a certain state's votes should count in a specific way, or, like whether or not there was any impropriety that happened. All things that we've never really concerned ourselves on an election-by-election basis that will 100% absolutely become part of this election. Because never in history of the money in elections right now is out of control. But if you want to see where they're spending a lot of their money right now, it's in lawyers. Mm-hmm. Lawyers in every single state to rule on, to be there, ready to go, just basically on retainer, ready to.
This week, 5 appeals courts from states came down with rulings. And I was like, how many cases are every single state? Yeah. Every state has a lawsuit right now about mail-in ballots or absentee ballots. And it's just like, oh, okay. So,
well, you also got to think a lot of courts were closed for a long time. Yeah. So it basically was piling up, like waiting for a court to be able to see the case. Yep. And then all these things sort of hit all at once. But like this is going to be one of the most, Biden could win literally 50 states, and it's going to be the most litigious election that we've ever seen. Like it's unbelievable.
And even if he loses, even if Trump loses, we still don't know what happens after that. Like, eventually you get to January, we have a parade, Biden walks up to the house and the doors are locked, and it's like, anybody got the key? Like, no, he's inside with all the keys. Like, okay.
So, or what remains of the Wolverine Watchmen decide to make an appearance at the inaugural parade or something like that. I mean, like, this is we're the expression through the looking glass applies, I think, here, where we're seeing the dark underbelly of what could potentially be on the other side of an election that nobody is necessarily looking forward to.
Yeah. And that is all about a Supreme Court justice. And I think we'll circle back to this next week. I have a lot of comments about, like, are they going to ask questions of her husband? Because the religious sect that she's a part of says that she must ask her husband for advice on every decision. So is she going to go to her husband for advice? We don't know. But I don't want to say anything about it until we find out what she has to say in front of Congress. So.
I really do think that the Democrats are going to do what they can to avoid talking about anything regarding religious matters, because they don't want to be seen as taking out persecuting somebody for their religious liberties or their religious choices and stuff like that. But I mean, like, when she makes statements saying that she signs a multiple page letter saying that she's going to go along with overturning Roe if she ever had the opportunity, and being able to point to examples where she said she, as a law professor, that she would overturn Obamacare just on the face of it. Yep. These are troubling things as far as the justice goes that needs to be. Yeah.
How about the fact that you haven't heard the case yet, and you're just saying, oh, no, I'd overturn it facially. Yeah. You shouldn't be a justice. Roe aside, as controversial as it is, and Obamacare aside, as controversial as it is, no justice should get on the court if they are out there in the world saying, oh, no, absolutely, I rule facially on this issue, unless it's, should black people have the right to vote? Okay, I can facially say that issue, that should probably be handled.
I mean, honestly, even when people have in the past said to me something in regards to, like, oh, I'm sure you've gotten this a lot with people asking for free legal advice.
Oh,
like,
a little bit, yeah.
So I was driving, I was minding my own business, was going the speed limit, and then all of a sudden the cop came up behind me and came up to my car and said, I caught you doing 20 miles over the speed limit. I said, that's not true, and he walked away. And then, like, what do I do in this situation? Like, how do I fight this ticket? And you would probably say something along the lines of, based off of what I know of this situation, or based off of what you just told me of this situation, and based off of the law, I will tell you this, and that.
Bodie is what you do.
Right, but
bend over and take it. That's what's good about that.
But I'm saying, like, you can say, like, you're going to preface this somehow by saying, based off of what you told me, based off of the information I have, these are what I think would apply to you. But if I don't tell you the whole story and you give me
there's an arm hanging out your trunk.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you're like one of the car videos we
or
watched,
my speedometer,
on a rim.
My speedometer was broken or something
Yeah,
like that. And
yeah.
I was just like, I was going 0 miles an hour. I don't know what to tell you.
Feels like 50. I don't know. Close enough.
Like, you know, like those are all parts of you can't sort of blanket say like, oh, well, 100% for sure use this argument in court, because you don't know all the details.
Yeah.
And you don't know how things are going to be presented in court. And that makes a big difference into how you have to react to it. So, you know, a lot of justices have been able to get away with it forever by saying like, I don't talk about, you know, like hypothetical cases. Like
Scalia spent 30 years as a lawyer and law professor and judge, basically saying that I take no position, because he wanted to be on the Supreme Court, and he was like, I'm just going to build it up, and I'm the guy in my field who the far
I do this sometimes, I do this sometimes.
Yeah, I'm all over the place, and whatever. If a case gets in front of me, I decide it.
Yeah, I'm
Which
just
we
calling
all
balls
know
and
is not
strikes.
true.
Yeah.
But we'll follow up on Amy Coney Barrett as more details come in over the next week. But I think it's important that you just brought up the details are very important, because it's not just important when we nominate a Supreme Court justice. It's also important, you know, about a sitting president.
Yeah.
And there's some very important details we're unaware of right now.
Yes.
I guess I shouldn't say we're unaware of. I don't trust the details that we're aware of.
So we were going to record this podcast saying, oh, Trump still hasn't been given the doctors still haven't given the Trump's negative officially yet. But now, as of today, we've heard that yes, he has tested negative according to the doctor
has said.
According to the doctor who's lied to us, he's now negative. So, this whole thing is just fucking unbelievable to me. You know, regardless of what you think of Trump, where you, dear listener, stand on the position of Trump, he was given the golden goose opportunity of a lifetime, where
everybody I know on Facebook was just like, he's not really sick. He's just plumbing this up to be, look at me. Oh my gosh, I understand now.
Yeah.
I've recovered and I'm with all of you. And I was like, no. He's probably really sick because, you know, he doesn't wear a mask. So that'll happen. They're like, no, just wait and see. He's going to recover and he's just going to boost forward in the polls.
The boost forward the rally around the flag effect and the boost around in the polls is a real thing. When Reagan got shot, Reagan was not overwhelmingly popular at the time. If I remember correctly from what I heard, I think he was like, you know, somewhere around 49% like
I think it was
approval
high 40s,
or something like
high 40s,
that. Yeah.
But it was like the president in his first year fell below 50%, which is
unheard of. But he got shot. And then he was like at 81% approval and stuff like that, or something maddening, just a humongous jump. And, you know, anyone who knew anything would look at that and go like, oh, okay, well, that's not real. Like, that's just people feeling real bad that he got shot.
Yeah, first Bush and Desert Storm, second Bush and the and 9/11, all of it always is just like, all right, forget our differences. We're not overturning Roe today.
Yeah.
Today we got to go fight the people who attacked us. Okay, rally around and give support to the guy.
Right. And, you know, Trump had the golden opportunity. If he had the ability to be empathetic or aware at all,
or self-deprecating,
he would have been able to just leave and just be like, guys, I was with you before. Trust me. I was trying to do everything I could for you, but after the week I just had, I feel so terrible for everyone. Like, you know, I know what this is like. I'm the one who can lead us back. Because not only do I know how to fix the economy that's broken because of Democrats, but I can rationally, you know, I can feel your pain when it comes to the coronavirus.
What does Joe Biden know about COVID?
Yeah.
I've had COVID. I know what you're going
But
through.
the problem is he's doing shit like that, but so light and so wrong. Like, he was just like, I've had COVID, so now I know what it's like, and not only that, but I'm immune, so I can get out of the basement like Joe Biden. Like,
yeah. And by the way, it wasn't that bad. You're all pussies for having it and feeling so terrible. Let me go out on the deck, barely able to breathe, but I'm going to put my Superman shirt on. And
that Superman story is ridiculous.
So for those of you who don't know, they had to talk Trump down from, first of all, talking him down was changing one detail. He still went out on the veranda. He still gave his little performance as if people don't have boom mics and, you know, lenses that are able to get and see him. And he's out there struggling to breathe and stay vertical. But he wanted to go out there and struggle to breathe and stay vertical, and also rip open his dress shirt to show a Superman t-shirt underneath. And they had to talk him back from that.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, go out on the veranda, but let's keep our shirt on, shall we? Nobody wants to see that.
His brain is a terrifying place. I just don't.
Yes. I want to
problem.
incept him just so I can see what kind of crazy dreams he's got going on in there.
God
Oh,
damn.
man.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, and when he was tweeting, when he was clearly having like steroid and fever driven tweets, and he's just like, F everything, basically.
Another one. You remember when things have gone wrong for presidents before, and then a week goes by, and then all of a sudden there's the exclusive 60 Minutes interview or the NBC nightly news interview with the president.
Oh, you
where
mean
it
like
says-
when Obama wore that tan suit and then he had to apologize for it? Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Or
yeah.
like the 9/11 happens, and George W. Bush like a week later is on NBC nightly news doing a sit down with, I think it was fucking
Was it
what's his
Leslie
face now?
Stahl?
No, it was somebody else. I don't know. But like having the big media interview where he explains like what's happening and what our next steps are and all this sort of stuff.
Oh, he
Like,
also explained that he had no idea it was going to happen. That it was completely surprised. And
Yeah.
then we found out later.
But I mean,
it
like
was a lie.
well, we found out a lot of lies later. But I'm saying like he's missing out on all these opportunities to try and get back voters. This is the problem with his campaign right now. He's purging voters. Like that's.
Yeah, and I was gonna say I do want to talk about the race. I do want to mention one other thing because when we talk about Trump and when we talk about the changes our country's going through, we also have to talk about the attacks on science and the fact that half the country doesn't trust science anymore. And I find it ironic that I say that after saying I don't trust the doctor who said that he's negative.
Yeah.
But I understand the irony. It's not hypocritical, and I'll tell you why. Because that doctor has been proven to have lied to us in the past. And, who hasn't lied is all the environmental people who say things like, the earth is going to get warmer. We need to be careful. And then the earth got warmer, and we weren't careful.
Bullshit.
And somebody, I believe it was Al Gore's documentary, I don't know, back in 2003, which was nearly 2 decades ago, that said, hurricanes are going to get stronger and more frequent in the Atlantic. And people said, oh, no, that's never going to happen. And people in the Gulf, well, you're probably not listening to this because you don't have power again for the second time in 3 months. Because Hurricane Delta, that's right, we've gone through the entire alphabet and now we're starting back at the top again. This is the 16th storm to make landfall in America or on the continental United States this year. That is a record that is tying the record for most ever. And I just can't, I don't understand people. Like the picture that really tells the story of this storm is that Delta came ashore and there was someone who took a picture during the storm of a neighborhood that was just demolished by Hurricane Laura. And now all they could do was throw tarps over their basically demolished houses because yet another hurricane was coming through.
Yeah.
And again, if you wrote an end of the world script where in Act 1, the protagonist's house was demolished by a hurricane, and shortly thereafter, they had to throw a blue tarp over it because another
10
hurricane was
pages
coming.
later, another hurricane came.
They're going to look at you and say, I get it. Lots of weather.
I
on the
understand. You want to make this guy's life miserable, but 2 hurricanes in the same
When
in
would
a
that
month's
ever?
period of time?
nose. When would that ever happen? It's too on the nose. We need to back off a little bit.
What does he live in Miami?
But so we are having once in a century storms more than one time a year.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. And my only hope continues to be that somehow this bridge presidency of Joe Biden stops the bleeding.
Yeah.
I mean, he is the battlefield medic. Stabilize the patient and let's get him somewhere where, I don't know, Pete Buttigieg, by the way, I think you sent me the video of him on Fox News.
Yeah.
That is who I want as a president. I'm sorry, I keep hitting my mic. That is who I want as a president. Pete Buttigieg on Fox News, where he's like, we quick on his feet and answering questions and snapping back at people.
Yeah.
That's who I want. Let's get Joe Biden in, and then Kamala can go back to California. God damn it. SNL had a really good way that they said that, but nonetheless, and then we get somebody like Pete, and it doesn't have to be Pete because he's problematic, but somebody who's under 50,
Yeah.
and maybe a person of color, but under 50 at least, somebody of our generation, to go in and be president and say, all right, Joe, thank you. You stabilized the country. You were a level-headed leader when we needed one. Now we need to go and look and be very progressive because if we don't do anything, 2050, half of the United States is going to be uninhabitable. California is going to burn half the year. The Gulf states are going to be hurricane alley. The middle of the country is going to be tornado alley. Just weather is going to decimate us. I don't know if you've seen the movie 2012. Wait, was it 2000? No, Day After Tomorrow. That's what I'm thinking about. Superstorms across the world, terrifying everything. That's where we're headed. Sad.
Indeed.
Anyway.
Back to the race for the White House.
Sorry, yes.
There's some good news and bad news here. So, I guess top line, good news. Biden is leading big. Depending on what poll you're looking at, he's anywhere from 10 to 14 points ahead, which is...
No, wait, you mean 10 to 0.14% of 1%, right? Because he's at 50% and Trump's at 49%. Is that what you mean? Or?
No. Like Trump is somewhere around 40% and Biden is somewhere around 50 to 54%.
Ooh, oh, okay. That's
so a sizable difference. And you know, the other part of this is that in individual states where, you know, Hillary Clinton had no business even spending time or trying to win, like Biden is within a percentage of error, basically.
And by the way, Hillary had no business being there, so she didn't go there, and then those states went to Trump, and she lost. So,
right.
Yeah,
but I mean, like even the one, you know, so like obviously like Michigan and Wisconsin and stuff like that are in Biden's camp right now, and that's things that Hillary took for granted. But other states that just were not on the map, like Texas, North Carolina, Georgia, Iowa, and you know, obviously everyone's fighting for Ohio and Florida, and Arizona is of course up. Arizona, Biden's up 12 in Arizona right now.
If I told you when we were back playing Political Machine, that I as a candidate were able to take Texas as the Democrat, as John Kerry in that game, I think is who it was, right? I was able to take Texas, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, plus the rest of the Democratic states. They've been like, there's a bug in this game, and I don't know how you pulled this off, but there's something wrong here.
I'm pretty sure. I have to think about it, but if you won California, Texas, New York, and Illinois, like, could you get to? You couldn't get to 270 there. You'd be pretty fucking close, though.
54, 52. So you're at 106 with California and New York.
Yeah.
And that is generally the big chunk for Democrats. And then it's like, all right, pick up.
And Texas
7.
and Illinois are in the 30s, right?
No, Texas is in 40s. So you're at 160 with Texas, New York, and
California.
Illinois is in the 30s.
Yeah. I think it's like 38 or something like that.
Yeah. And then Florida is 27.
Something like that, yeah.
Also, these numbers will change immensely because the census is going to be restructuring out our distribution of electoral votes. But trying to think of another big state. Pennsylvania,
Ohio,
is in the 20s and high 20s. So is Ohio, high 20s. But yeah, Florida's like 20. No, Florida is 27. So I mean, if you take Texas, Illinois, California, New York, and 2 of those other 4, you're at 250.
Yeah.
And then he's gonna win Delaware. 4, 8, 3. Sorry, 3.
He'll win Maryland. So
probably
there's another 10.
Yeah, there's another 10.
Massachusetts. He'll win the district.
Yeah, he'll win 3 from the district. Probably the 7, 10 from Massachusetts.
Yeah, go crazy in the Pacific Northeast or in the Northeast.
And I mean, at that point,
but the Pacific Northwest too. I mean, like he's got the.
But just adding to the list, Massachusetts on top of Maryland and Delaware and DC. I think we're at 270 there.
Yeah.
So if you take Texas
without even having to worry about any other state, like
lose the rest of the Bible Belt, but that's not where we are. He's doing well in Georgia, in North Carolina, in Michigan as well.
Iowa. Literally the whitest state we have as a country is Iowa, and the fact that Trump is losing that one, where the base of his support have been uneducated college white people, college educated white people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, and look, earlier we were talking about a militia trying to kidnap and kill the governor of the state. Biden is winning that state.
Yeah.
And I see all of you on Facebook, all the Trumpers just saying like, well, they were saying the same thing about Hillary. Yes. In 2016, we made the mistake of looking at the national poll and saying, look, she's winning. By the way, she won nationally.
Yeah.
The popular vote.
To be fair, so think about it this way. Hillary was predicted at like a 3-point lead nationally going into the election. She finished with a 2-point lead. So that's pretty good.
I think it was 2.5, 2.6. It was like on the way up to 3, though.
It was within
accurate.
the margin of error
Yeah.
of like where they thought it would be. So the polling wasn't wrong. The difference was where the states lined up.
Yes.
And nobody expected her to lose Michigan and Wisconsin because they thought those were solid Democratic bets. But she also didn't cultivate the relationships that she needed to win those states either. So there was things in play with the polling that didn't make it completely sense. But, you know, you think about it in terms of like the 538 model. They always give it as a percentage chance of winning.
Yeah.
Trump wasn't 0. He was a 20% chance of winning, which is not great, but it's 1 in 5 if you think about it realistically. So, you know, now he's at like a, 15% chance, 17% chance or something like that, according to 538. So again, not great, but is there a 1 in 10 chance that he wins? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a way that this works out where he wins re-election again. And you have to think the deck is stacked against somebody who's trying to run up against an incumbent. An incumbent has an incredible advantage over a challenger.
Trump can just walk outside at any point, and a reporter will walk up to him.
Yeah.
And he can do. And traditionally, you didn't do things like have your Secretary of State during your convention in a controversial city across the world give you a backing. This guy does.
Yeah.
So there is no rules. He really could just walk up in the Rose Garden and do a presser for the campaign, even though he's not supposed to do that, but he does. But I think that the thing that people are missing as well is Hillary, they were accurate, but they misjudged where the votes were going to come from. They have fixed that now. And in fact, the national polling isn't just a national number. It is corrected for states, essentially. So while 538 is doing a popular vote poll, you can also see the percentage of electoral votes.
Yeah, and you can dial into each individual state and see where their polls are putting it. And it's all based off of polls that are already out there. It's just like sort of an aggregation of the polls that are already out there.
And if I remember, Nate Silver, that's the guy's name, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the week or two leading up to the election was saying, I'm seeing some very worrisome things here.
Yeah.
It looks like it's in the bag, but we are looking at the wrong number. You are looking at the national number, and we don't do popular vote nationally. You got to look at the local numbers and then put those all together.
Well, also another thing to consider, and we talk shit about Biden here all the time.
Yeah.
But it's out of love, I guess.
No,
But
it's absolutely not.
It's out of I hope you win this one election and then leave. I guess is what is that? Is that love?
No.
No, but I mean, like going into the 2016 election, the biggest problem going in was that both of these candidates were historically unliked.
Yeah. You went from Obama, who everyone loved, and you picked the worst possible person to come out of that.
Right. And, you ended up with this situation. Biden, for lack of anything better to say, is popular. People like him. His popularity is above 50%. He's
more
got
like
a plus
the other,
positivity.
He's more like the other Clinton.
Yeah.
Just like an old white guy that everybody's like, hey, he's cool enough.
He's got some troubling things, but
So listen, I mean, Hillary did relatively poor amongst African-American men and women, and Biden, for some reason, has really high support in the African-American community.
He has.
Oh, well, I guess.
I mean, he has for his career been a advocate for a lot of causes for the African American community,
Incarcerating them, especially.
Well, I mean, besides that one, but I'm saying like he has done. Usually, if you think you're going to run for president, it's a good idea to start finding potential pockets of voters to start buttering up to a little bit. Like you start putting in the. It used to happen a lot with God damn it, what was when California was more of a swing state. You used to see. I know people don't.
40s?
People don't remember this. California up until the 70s really was. It could go either way.
And keep in mind, California had Republican governors this century.
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is a Republican. Yeah, he was a movie star, but he's also a Republican.
But we
Jerry
had one before that. Well, Jerry Brown was Democrat.
Reagan was a Republican.
Reagan was a Republican.
Nixon.
Yeah. He wasn't governor, though.
Oh, that's right. He didn't win governor.
Yeah, he lost it after he lost the White House and then win the White House.
He won the White House after that. Yeah, that's right.
When people were like, Nixon's dead. Like, no more Nixon. Yay. Yeah.
You can't keep Tricky Dick down. But I think that the most telling of the little detail points that we want
Yeah.
to pull out of this is a place called The Villages. I don't know if everybody's heard about this, but Florida, as we said, is actually strongly in Biden's camp right now. Now, that is likely to fade to move to like more in play.
Florida is also one of those states that like is really difficult to poll for whatever reason, because it's like it's kind of like 5 different economies of people like all shoved into one weird state.
Listen, if University of Florida and Florida State both have a game on the Saturday before Election Day, and they both win, and a bunch of people get arrested, that can sway the election for the whole state. You never know. If that part goes, all these people are still in jail by Tuesday.
Yeah.
By the way, California removing cash bail. That's on the ballot.
Oh yeah.
Excited about that. Good for you, California. But nonetheless, so The Villages is a senior community in Florida. It's a town that is essentially, it's a retirement community that is so big, it's its own town. And this place has been a Republican bastion since before Florida was really in play.
Yeah.
When Florida was still like a lot of New Yorkers coming down to retire, The Villages was a Republican stronghold. And now there was a train of people in their little golf carts that they used to get around with Biden signs moving towards to drop their ballots off at the ballot boxes. And it's looking like he may do 60-40 in a neighborhood that was usually like, if you go by and wave on the way through, you're good. Republicans going to take this district because, again, so many old people live there. It's its own voting block, essentially. But it's going to go to Biden, 60-40, which doesn't bode well for Trump in the state, and it doesn't bode well for Trump in the country.
Yeah.
Because you might still keep, Michigan militia, 40-year-old white men, but you're losing the 60 and older, 55 and older white folks from The Villages.
Well, I mean, and another thing is like you literally have to think about this like picking out people at a certain point, because if we have 10 people here and we're trying to figure out what we're doing for dinner, and
we're not eating dinner. That's what's going to happen.
And half the people want pizza, and half the people want burger, or like 40% of the people want burgers, and 60% of the people want pizza. And I'm trying to get burgers to be the pick.
Yeah.
Then I got to pick off some pizza people.
Yep.
I got to find some pizza people who are not quite as enthused about it, and figure out a reason to talk them into burgers. But I also have to be careful, because the thing I say to the one person who is on the line might offend somebody else who's in the pizza camp. So I have to be very measured with how I handle this. But at some point, if I want to win, if I want to get burgers for dinner, I have to convince some of these pizza people to come over. There's no other way to do it other than that.
Also, you got to be careful about your argument for burgers.
Or you get the 40% of the people who are in the room who've never voted and never will.
Yeah.
And maybe convince them to vote. Because
if you can get the people out who wouldn't have voted before.
I mean, for a long time, the Democratic strategy was, hey, we're not really going to win Alabama, but if the 40% of the people who never fucking show up and vote all of a sudden decided to show up and we had 100% voting, then the Democrats will win. Yeah. Like, that's how it works.
But I think the bigger thing that Trump has to worry about.
But the 40% are like, it doesn't even matter. Like,
whatever. I'll take whatever.
It's going to be Roy Moore. I don't care.
But the using your example, the bigger problem, I think, is in your full-throated argument for burgers, you can't start putting doubts in the heads of your burger people, which is his problem. It's like, this guy's really into burgers, and I'm starting to feel like pizza's a better decision. I don't know. I
started wanting a burger, but all he's talking about is McDonald's burgers, and I don't really want that burger.
Yeah, so maybe we should go with pizza. And that's his problem, is that he started 50-50.
Listen, a really bad pizza is still pizza. I mean, a really bad burger, though. I don't even really want to mess with a really bad burger.
And now you're moving people into the undecided camp.
Yeah.
And some of those people you're actually moving to pizza camp. And that's his problem, is that he is so bad at arguing his point, he actually doesn't convince anybody new to come, and is making some of his own supporters be like, bro, just shut up until election day, and I could still vote for you. But then you made a 70-year-old man say, "Will you shut up, man?" Like
it doesn't make it easier, like, because if you say you're going to vote for Trump, you're getting somebody who comes to you and says like, yeah, but what about all the racism and the white supremacists and the blah blah blah, and then you have to go well, I don't like that part, but I love what the stock market was doing.
Yeah,
you got to look like an idiot at some point if you're like, I'm okay with some of this, but not just only select parts of it.
Listen, Trump.
I don't like the forced sterilization or the border camps or any of those sort of things, but like the my portfolio was looking really good for a while there. So
Corey's dad and my dad, Mr. Trump's campaign, you don't have to worry about them. Not the economy, but the stock market is up. Corey's dad's happy. And you want to do away with Roe and make marriage only between a man and a woman. My dad is happy. What you have to worry about is the people who aren't them. And if you're only talking to the base, you're not going to get there. That's essentially where we are. And apparently they haven't learned that. And that seems like it should be enough election talk for this week, but the Republicans are also putting out fake ballot boxes in California. And the debate that was supposed to happen has been canceled. Yeah. It's just like the hits keep coming and none of it's good. And the debate's canceled because Trump refused to do a digital debate. And, well, I guess he first refused to get tested to do it in person, then refused to do a digital debate, and then also just was like, well, we'll reschedule it for later. Like it's a meeting at my work or something.
Like you don't have to plan for it. He needs these debates, too. That's the other. He blew the first one. No matter who. If you were really a Trump supporter, then you probably thought his first debate was great because you were like, oh, he's really getting in Biden's face and owning the libs and blah, blah, blah. But like that was not convincing pizza people to come get burgers, you know? So
and some of the pizza people were saying, or some of the burger people were saying, I don't know how I defend this anymore. Like he's not even a polite human being.
Right. So Trump needs these debates more than Biden does. And the problem is that I just don't. Town hall hypothetically would probably work better for Trump if he can figure out a way to connect with people, but he's never been able to do that either. So
let me tell you why it's not. Because the first person that gets up and asks him a question with a mask on, and he tells them to take the mask off, and they refuse.
You're really rude.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then half the people who are saying, listen, he's not wearing a mask. That's fine. That's his choice. He doesn't impose his choices on me. But I do wear a mask. And he's like, you're stupid for wearing a mask. Take your mask off. And then they're just like, oh, okay, I'm out.
This moment in presidential debate history. You remember when George H.W. Bush lost it by checking his watch? I'm amazed we live in this world where he can tell white supremacists to stand by. And George H.W. Bush literally, like, at one point during the debate, he was like looking and he was just like,
Yeah.
And then the whole thing afterwards was just like, oh, he doesn't have time to be there. He doesn't care about the American people.
He's the sitting president of the United States.
His watch. What's more important, his watch or the debate? Like,
oh, by the way, also, there was a vice presidential candidate who spelled potato wrong and maybe also helped lose his candidate the election.
I don't know if Dan Quayle's still alive. Like he's literally, since that moment, has been blasted off the face of the earth. Like, he's not even... You look in history books and it's fucking X'd out. Like,
here's my only hope. If that happened to Dan Quayle for potato, maybe The Fly will do the same thing to Mike Pence. And he'll just be blasted out of the history books and we'll forget this ever happened.
It'll all be about The Fly from now on.
All I'm saying is Maxon is too young to remember 2020. My hope is that by the time he's old enough to discuss it, when someone is like, hey, so what happened with the 2020? And we just all look away. We don't talk about that. And then it becomes this dark time, and then we get to be the cool people who are like lived through something.
Yeah.
And they're like, who's this Mike Pence guy? Oh, he was a radio personality in South Bend, Indiana.
And vice president for a short period of time.
Nope. We're not going to talk about that part. He was a radio personality, ? Died on this day. That's it. That's all he gets. His obituary will be radio personality, South Bend, Indiana.
Radio personality, yada, 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 Congress, yada, 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 governor, yada, 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 dead.
Survived by
mother.
All right, so let's try to lift people up a little bit.
Okay.
For the end here. And I could think of no better thing. Nothing has lifted the American people the way that sports ball has lifted American people. That's why they call me Mr. Transitions.
The sports ball that we are currently dealing with is all the championships. So
this year has been weird because then they all did the season together, and it's like usually we get to spread out this thing, but now every city, like, by the way, LA is in 3 of these championships.
No, well, no, 2. So 2. They were the baseball playoffs is still happening. We're in the league championship series now.
Yes.
The NBA finals just wrapped up. The Stanley Cup just wrapped up. And the football season is obviously just in the beginning.
But the Rams are looking really good in football.
Yes.
So there is a chance this city burns 3 times in the next 3 months over a championship series. So,
yeah, I don't think anyone would have the same kind of reaction to the Rams winning that they would the Lakers winning.
Also true.
I'll say that.
Also true. Somebody's like, Rams? Oh, congrats, guys. That's cool.
I feel bad. Like we were watching the Chargers on Monday night here, and I was I for a fleeting moment I thought about like, what if they ever won the Super Bowl and nobody showed up to the parade? It's like 20 people just like standing along the side of like.
Well, yeah. The other reason that if the Rams,
Inglewood just like, woo, San Diego.
If the Rams or the Chargers won, nothing would happen the night of the championship because nobody wants to drive out to Inglewood in order to celebrate. You're just like, I mean, I would, but it's going to be like 90 minutes to get to Inglewood at this time of night. And, the traffic getting back. Yeah, we'll celebrate at the parade. And then 3 weeks later, you're like, was there a parade? Oh, I missed it. Oh, bad. Sorry.
It's funny. My perch here high above the 110 freeway gave me an interesting perspective of a lot of traffic going towards LA Live and not a lot of traffic heading the other way.
Wonder why.
Which made me think that a lot of people are driving in to go to LA Live and celebrate.
They were.
And 76 people arrested. 1,000 people or so, they said, showed up.
Dispersed.
There was property crime, graffiti, everything like that. I didn't see Kyle Rittenhouse sticking out for us, but, I guess it's a long drive from Illinois.
Also,
can't stick up for that property.
He's on bail. I'm not sure he's allowed to leave the state.
I don't get it, to be honest with you. I know there was a lot of people down there with masks. I'm sure there were some people who were trying to stay safe and everything like
Did
that.
you see Bubble Boy?
But I saw
Bubble
that
Boy
one.
was down there. Oh, that was so great.
I was. It almost felt like the Lakers win the championship quickly. Corona doesn't count. Let's go.
Yes.
we have a 20-hour reprieve from COVID. Let's all go down there and celebrate.
COVID was just sitting there like, you know what? You guys celebrate.
I'm gonna let you have it. Listen.
Go ahead.
I'm a LeBron fan just like anybody else. I'm gonna take away your fun.
LeBron got 4 rings now?
Four rings, third team.
I'm going to give you 24 hours.
Enjoy yourself. So yes, Lakers win the NBA championship. 17th NBA championship, 12th since coming to Los Angeles. I don't really count the first 5 that happened in Minnesota.
Well, wait, that's
when
weird.
there were like 5 teams. And
it's weird that you would say that.
George Mikan was the best player in the league.
That's a new interesting factoid for me.
Yeah.
If they've won that many, how come Lakers fans don't mention it every other breath? Because I feel like the Yankees have won 27.
Yeah.
And I hear them their fans talking about it literally every other moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, but 27 rings. Yeah, okay. But the Lakers, you got to learn how to be more boastful. You won a lot of rings.
They were talking a lot about their 17 last night.
Yeah, but it was the night they won another one.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yankees fans talk about it when they're not even making the playoffs. Like, this year, I had to check and make sure. This year, when they're not even in the championship series, I guarantee you there's somebody on Twitter now saying, yeah, sure, Houston, Tampa Bay, but 27 rings.
Yeah.
Okay. What have you done for me lately, bro? Anyway. Yeah, Lakers NBA champs. Houston, Tampa Bay in the ALCS. Houston. Also, by the way, Houston fans,
By the way, just so you know, that does tie the most NBA championships with the Celtics.
Celtics, right? Yeah, I was going to say. And also, don't hear Celtics fans talking about all your damn rings all the time. It's weird. Only one pretentious group of assholes really brings up the rings all the time. But Tampa Bay, Houston in the ALCS.
Yep.
Houston fans also shut the hell up. It doesn't matter. We are all still thinking about cheating. It's a short season. We all know you can put together a short stretch of games. You won some on the road, even when you cheated your way through the rest of the games at home. So who's to say?
I really wonder. It's setting itself up for the rematch, Houston, LA.
Yeah.
For like this one, hopefully on the level.
Well, yeah,
and like
no games in
gives
Houston.
LA their first World Series in a long time, but
also Atlanta, Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Is it 1996 again? Did I get lost at some point?
LA wasn't that good in 1996.
Oh, that's true. Okay,
mind you.
Atlanta hasn't been good since 1996. I don't know what's going on.
They had quite the run in the 90s.
Do you remember that?
Impressive. Yeah.
It was just like they were the opposite of the Buffalo Bills in the 90s.
They were like
winning all the time.
I mean, they were like the Patriots. Like,
yeah.
For the last decade here, if somebody was like, who's going to win the AL or the AFC East, you're just like, well,
Patriots.
The Patriots.
Okay.
Unless something horribly goes wrong.
And who's going to win the championship for the AFL? The AFL. AFC championship.
Yeah.
Like, well, Patriots or somebody's going to have the best game of their life. Yeah, somebody's going to have the best game of their life and win against Tom Brady. And then
I would like to see Tampa go, though. I mean, like as much as they are not supported by their home fans at all, and they really don't deserve a team.
Florida doesn't deserve.
I think the pressure is going to be too high on LA people if it's Houston versus LA again.
Yeah.
Like it's just going to be too much. They're not going to be able to handle it. It is. As far as a viewer, I would love to see it, but I'm sure there's some LA faithful who will be going out of their minds for this.
Is it arguable that Tampa Bay has a stronger support base in the bubble-ish games than they do in their own home stadium?
Well, I mean, they
do allow some people in the stadium.
No, I mean,
there's like support staff there, and
I mean, are we counting the cardboard cutouts? Because I mean, like,
oh, then for sure they have more people in the stand. I'm just saying, like,
are we counting the homeless people who live in the press box? Or
if you see an average Tampa Bay Rays game, like it's 4,000, 5,000, 8,000 people, and the support staff who's in the bubble also can go to games. So like you're there, and they have games running. Because I keep trying to remember. I can't remember. Where was the ALDS series?
In L.A. at Dodger Stadium and Petco.
Petco.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're at Petco, and there are 7-8 teams at Petco with them, right?
No.
6 teams.
No.
Just 2?
Yeah.
Where were they before that? Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Home
about.
ballparks.
Was it home ballparks?
I believe so.
No, I thought there was one more round that everybody was kind of together.
It was like the wild card round, but I thought they had that all at the home ballparks. So
Maybe
it was
I'm wrong about
3
that.
games all at the same place.
I also have not been paying attention to baseball. I'm getting my facts secondhand, not from Corey, from somebody at work. And I thought he said that it was that they was one round where they were all together, and then they went to Petco. Then I was thinking it was Petco, but they went to Petco for the ALDS. Now they're in the ALCS.
I mean, I didn't watch any of the wild card games, so I mean, it could have happened. I guess I've not been a loyal baseball fan this season because it's just not the fucking same. I'm going to be honest with you. I can't watch. Part of the reason why I love playoff baseball so much is because everyone comes there ready to go. They got their towels. They got the like people are cheering, going crazy. Like you get the moment where it's a full count in the bottom of the 7th with like the bases loaded, and you do the like slow pan in on the pitcher who's staring down the sign, and you see the sweat dripping, and you just hear the sound of fucking crazy people all around, and nothing beats that experience. And with no fans, it is not as much fun for me.
You know why I hate this time of year?
Why?
Because Time Hop is an asshole. And I just
reminding you of better times.
Going through the post of like, we went to Detroit. That was amazing. Oh, the double, great. And then I think it was today. It might have been yesterday. I saw a post that I made in the 6th inning of the last game. Or not the last game in Baltimore versus Kansas City.
Yeah.
That I posted like, who's giving up? There's time to come back. And I was just like, we were only down. It was like down 4-1 in the 6th. And I'm like, we could come back. And now with the benefit of history, I'm just like, that was such a sad moment. Like so much orange in the whole stadium, just like feeling like one living organism, just like the noise and everybody walking around. And then we lost. Yeah. And then they went back to Kansas City and lost again. And we got swept. Oh, well.
Yeah. In other knocking out news.
Yeah. I have to talk about this, and I'm not a fight fan necessarily. I don't go places to watch the fight. I wouldn't go even if we were allowed to go watch the fight. But everyone was talking about this knockout, and I was just like, all right, let me go watch it. And we got the video. Can you pull up the video, Roberto? So you can see this knockout that is something out of a video game.
Yeah.
Like, this is a move where, if Corey hits X and Y and blocks my kick, but at the same time, I hit L1, R1, and triangle at the same time, he will backspin and kick his character in the face.
My favorite part of this too is my favorite part of a great knockout, and I don't want people to get knocked out, blah blah blah. So, but my favorite part of somebody getting knocked out like this is like there's a moment where he's like still standing there with his hands up, and he's just like, "What the fuck just happened?" And then he falls down. He's like, it takes a moment for the brain to react to the fact that you just got a concussion, and you're just like, there's a moment where he's standing there just going like, "Oh no."
Have you ever been punched in the face, Corey?
Yes,
okay.
I have.
Because I would say that, like, from my perspective, it's not me sitting there saying, "What the fuck just happened?" It's the lights are already off, and it looks like everything's fine, but the lights are gone, and it's just waiting for gravity to take everything with you that way.
I got punched like right in the nose once, like got one of those like sort of like pushed it up into the bridge a little bit, and I remember like it happened, and then I was just like, did that just fucking happen? Like sometimes it happens, and your brain can't react fast enough to like what just happened.
Oh yeah, so like when you're smoking a cigarette and a guy punches you in the jaw, and you're like, "You just punch me?" And he punches you again. So you flick your cigarette, and you turn and look at him, and he hits you a third time, and then Corey keeps you from getting a manslaughter charge. So that happened. But the everybody was talking about how like the dude walked away after he kicked him and walked away.
Yeah.
Like he's like he knew the fight was over. But and in the ring, he's like, "Yeah, I knew I finished him with that kick." Blah blah blah. Later on, there's an interview where he's like, "No, he had me by the foot. I kicked out of the hold and then was moving to not get taken down." Like, it's one of those things where you don't necessarily plan it. You just strike out as much as you can and then try to get away.
You know, though, that you had a really nice move if eventually it shows up in a video game.
Yeah,
this will somehow end up in a UFC video game.
Yes.
I think about the Odell catch. Like Madden had to include something that looked like the Odell catch after he made that. I just saw recently like clips for the new NHL game, and you can do the Michigan in it now, which is where you pick up the puck and you like sort of like throw it in as opposed to like like where you use the centrifugal force to keep it on the side of the stick, and then you just sort of like throw it in.
Are they going to do that thing from the All-Star Game MVP where you give the finger to the commissioner and then change your jersey into a blank one and go out on the ice anyway?
I would love that.
That'd be my favorite part.
I would love if there was just like fucking like a little commentary from the players on the ice, and it's just like, "Fuck you, Batman."
Well, I will say that if this does end up in a video game, much like the Odell Beckham catch in Madden and anything that's very difficult in video games, I will not be able to pull it off. No matter what it is, it will be too complex. If it's more than, up, down, left, right, start, select, I can't do it. So
the problem is that much like the Odell catch, you'll see people doing it on like an outrageous play. Like a little screen pass to the running back behind the line. Whoa!
Yeah, I was going to say, Roberto and I play Call of Duty Warzone together all the time, and you can watch those videos on Twitch, but I'm terrible, and I admit that I'm terrible, and it's like, all right, hang on, let me change to my sniper, and it's like, squat up, okay, pull the pin on a grenade, nope, throw that the other way, all right, switch guns. Okay, now we're good to go. All of those are literally one key, and I can barely remember which key I have to hit in order to do that. So the idea that it's like, all right, so what you have to do is start the jump, and then right after you start the jump, then you throw the kick. Now they have to block the kick. If they do block the kick, then it's kick, swing, jump, and you'll come around and kick him in the face. And I'm going to be like, I'll never do that. Yeah. Nope, that's just not. I'll watch the video on TikTok.
I'm going to learn how to do nothing but that. It'll just be everything I do.
Or you figure out how to do it, and it's just the whole every time. It's just like, I'm going to come at you, and then...
I'm pretty sure that like in one of the wrestling video games, I think like with the People's Elbow or something like that, when you were playing with The Rock, you had to have the guy like knocked out long enough that you could do the whole move. So like I seem to remember there being like you have the guy down and you're just like, oh, I'm gonna hit him with the People's Elbow, and then he starts doing all the little moves like the taking off of the just like, come on dude, he's gonna get up. Your opponent's like slamming X, just like trying to get him off the ground, and then like the guy like stands up and you're still like going off both. Finally, just a little NFL news.
Yes.
Before we get into the actual games, I would just like to let you know that
do we have a final?
There was a final in the game between the Chargers and the Saints. Believe it or not, Chargers lost. I don't know how to tell you this, but
Yeah, no, I was
somehow
seeing,
they managed to blow this thing.
I was seeing on the TV as the Saints continued to score, and then the Chargers scored again, and Drew Brees was just like, all right, and went back out and did Drew Brees thing.
So this week was the OTA Bowl in fantasy.
Yep.
And I am victorious, 136 to 108 in our weekly matchup. So
And,
everyone, when you see Rob, make sure you give him the shame bell. Like,
absolutely. That score absolutely reflects the fact that Corey spent maybe 12 hours between Monday and Thursday researching and modifying his team. And I opened my Yahoo Fantasy app for the first time since the Thursday prior to today. Not the Thursday prior to 2 Thursdays prior to today. I opened for the first time this afternoon and was like, oh, hey, I forgot to change my lineup. Okay, well, this is it. Yeah. I have
left some points on the bench.
I left a lot of points. Also,
Yeah.
Dak Prescott went down in the third quarter, so he wasn't going to put up any points.
Yeah.
The thing I go to is we're in an election that may or may not decide whether I spend the rest of my natural life in a federal penitentiary and or in Guantanamo Bay. I got other things to worry about, and I can't be. Also, you spend a lot of time on the fantasy football, and that's good. It's a hobby. I produce 10 hours of content a week.
I feel
10
like
hours of brand new
you
content every
think
week.
I spend a lot of time on this when I don't. I check it Thursday
Yep.
and then Sunday morning, and then anything other than that is just checking the score.
See, I just picture that on a Tuesday when you're like, all right, I'm going to sit down
Like I'm
and
gonna
write.
sit and I'm gonna watch the game, right?
Oh,
and
no,
then
no,
I'm
no,
gonna
no.
sit there with the phone open. I'm gonna say like, oh, it's been about a half hour since I last checked the score. Let's see what's going on. That's about the limit.
I'm talking
to
about
my-
on Tuesday when you sit down and you're like, all right, I'm going to get some lines in. I'm going to get some pages done. Let me just check on Yahoo Fantasy real quick. And then 4 hours later, you're like, all right, really, going to get some writing done. Here we go. What's happening on Facebook right now? And then cigarette break and then more Yahoo Fantasy. And it's fine. Everybody's got to have a hobby. Some of us churn out 10 hours of new content a week across multiple platforms in multiple ways, all over the internet, all properly branded, all fantastic. And some of us win the OTA Bowl in fantasy football.
Well, I'm happy. How about that? Other people were happy. The Ravens, who beat up on the Bengals,
Yeah, by the way,
27-3.
The spread was 13 points.
Yeah.
And I listened to 3 podcasts, which have now started doing sports
Guess the
betting.
lines, yeah.
And I'm just like, this is not what I listened to you for, but I guess they're trying to be like as diverse as possible because COVID. And
I'm hearing more gambling on my podcast too because it's legal in certain states, and I'm just like, it's really making me want to go to Vegas and put some money on some games. That's the problem.
But it's everybody was like, listen, the Ravens are doing super well. 13's a big number. Take the Bengals. And then this week it was like, nope, that not a good idea. So
An interesting
they covered like it was like 17. What was the final score?
27-3.
Yes.
So
Okay.
24 points.
24 points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They covered their game plus probably another one added in there.
Plus what they missed on the spread on the Chiefs game.
Yeah. I think it was kind of a pussy move to kick the field goal at the end though too to avoid the shutout. The Bengals with like 5 seconds left kicked the field goal to avoid the shutout. And I'm
Was it a long field goal?
I mean it was, from the 25 30 yard line or whatever, but like clearly the game was over. They were just like, let's not get a shutout. Let's kick the extra point.
Yeah.
Or kick the field goal. And I'm like, you guys.
Somebody had a really big bet for the 27-point spread, and they're just like, don't you do it. Don't you do it.
Vegas can't lose this $18 million. And then, obviously, the big news, it was such a weird day as far as leg injuries are concerned because in the early slate of games, Alex Smith, who nearly died from a leg injury that he sustained on the field, a compound stress fracture and a broken ankle or something like that he received.
See, now you said this earlier too, and I just want to make it clear. He didn't almost die on the field, though. He almost died with complications from that injury.
Right.
Like, he Theismanned on the field, which
Yeah.
sucks. But then later on, it got infected and there was a lot of complications.
Right. But I mean, like, the long story short of this is this injury almost caused him to die.
Yes.
There were many people who were speculating after it happened that his career was done, that he would never, he might lose his leg.
Right.
Like, so
Forget
his football
walking.
career is over. But he was able to come back and rehab and play for I was almost about to say it, the Washington professional football team, and they are
in a masterful performance, and they won the game based on 400 yards passing.
No, it wasn't good. He got slaughtered once he went in. It was not favorable for him, but it was nice to see that, like, everyone was so happy with that moment, and his family was allowed into the stadium.
Yeah.
And they were cheering when he got brought into the game and everything like that. And it was a really great moment. And then the very next game in the slate with the Cowboys, you have Dak go down in a very similar injury to the one that befell Alex Smith. And there's
I'm
a lot
thinking of the way you described it to me, and it's making my skin crawl right now. Because I saw the picture, and I was like, ooh, that's a bad injury. But your description of, like, oh, it looked like his shoe popped off.
Yeah.
And it didn't. Is accurate, but also like, ooh.
Well, that was literally my first thought. When I saw it, it looked like, have you ever seen somebody when they're an athlete, when their shoe comes off and it's sort of like hanging off the end of their foot? And then usually what happens is you'll see the guy like take the shoe off and run off to the sideline, and then like 3 people will help him shove it back on. Because they tie it so tight and they put the tape on and everything like that. It's tough to get a shoe back on like right away. But like it looked like his shoe just came off, and then you were seeing his face and you were like, oh no, that is not.
Yeah.
That is more than just the shoe. That is his foot literally broken off of his leg. I think everyone universally feels for Dak Prescott right now, especially because there was a lot of conversation in the offseason about whether or not the Cowboys were going to be able to, or whether they were going to give him this massive contract.
Yeah.
And like it seemed like it was bound to happen. Like he just needed to get through the season.
Yep.
And he would have that huge contract, but now his career is in question at this point. Now, I guess don't feel too terrible for Dak because he is franchised for this year, so he is making $30 million for this year alone. So I imagine that he will be okay. I mean, it's not the same as the problem is anybody hears this is like $30 million sounds like a lot of money,
but
considering he could have made $400 million over the next 10 years.
I was gonna say he's a little older than
Mahomes,
but he's in the territory of getting similar money to be a franchise quarterback. He's
you're thinking $30 million a year probably at the floor of what he was going to make. So even if he had like a 10-year, $300 million contract, that's a big difference between $30 million.
Yep. Yeah.
And how much of that would be guaranteed if he had signed a long-term deal and then went out with an injury? If this happened a year from now, and he was after he signed the contract, then guaranteed. Insurance covers a lot of that.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a lot of guaranteed money too. So and I do want to apologize personally to Dak because, as I mentioned earlier, he was on my fantasy team, and as we know, that is just the curse
the
of
kiss
every
of death,
player.
Yeah.
If you're on my fantasy team, you're likely gonna.
That's why he was crying. He was just like, "God damn it, Rob!
I know." Yep.
Why'd you do this to me? I heard the rumors.
So good news.
Everyone in the league talks about who Rob took on his team.
So good news. By the way, second player from my fantasy draft to go down with a year-ending, possibly career-ending injury.
I think Saquon did it to himself, just to avoid the worst thing that was going to come later.
Yeah, could have
what's
been way worse.
What's the ritualistic suicide? That was his version of
seppuku. Yes, he tried seppuku. But good news for people like Corey who hate Los Angeles sports teams. Jared Goff up next. He'll be my starter. So. And if there's a guy who looks like he's pending an injury, it's just Jared Goff on any Sunday.
Enjoy that. And then our last little topic, KC getting beat by Vegas.
Talk about beating the spread.
Yeah.
I think it was the same way. I think it was negative 13.5 for Vegas.
Yeah. God. I still wonder. I haven't heard any tell of this specifically, but I know that Vegas got into a real difficult place with the Golden Knights when they first did their inaugural season, because obviously they went to the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
And Vegas looked to lose a lot of money because the hometown fans were coming to the casinos and betting the Golden Knights to win, regardless of
Doesn't
what
matter.
it's
Yep,
like,
I don't care what.
just taking the Golden Knights. Golden Knight for the Stanley Cup. And they're just like, yeah, sure. 100-1. What do we care? And then they win, and then it's just like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, problematic. Now,
I wonder if there's a similar thing where people just come rolling in going like, Raiders. Like,
they're paying off
13.5 against the Chiefs.
1.2 to 1. So we get your money back. How's that sound, Joe? Yeah, all right.
But yes, I'm fascinated by the Raiders too. Have you ever seen a team that's loved so much by the places that they leave? Like,
just the fan base in general.
Every Sunday in Los Angeles, I see more Raider jerseys than I see Charger jerseys or Ram jerseys. Like, they left you.
Yeah.
And then in Oakland,
still,
apparently it's still like the most popular team to watch. Like, like the Colts were dead to everybody when they left Baltimore. The Browns were dead to Cleveland until they came back 2 years later. Yeah. But I'm saying, like,
I think it's also how you leave.
Yeah.
Both the cases that involve Baltimore were really just about money.
Mm-hmm.
And L.A. when the Raiders came to L.A., wasn't that supposed to be temporary?
No, it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be. Oh, move here and we'll think about getting you a stadium. And they're just like, okay. And then there was just like, we're not going to do the stadium thing. It's like, okay. And then they left.
Yeah.
And then,
so I mean, I think.
And then Oakland for the last 50 years was just like, oh, we're getting a new stadium, and it's just like, we're waiting. So,
I think in the end, it's also like the Colts. You left in the middle of the night, and we chased you to the border with the state police, and you split up like you were bootleggers in like 5 different ways out of town. You're gonna get some hatred, forever. In fact, my childhood impacted greatly because my dad was just like, nope. Football, not a thing. We don't do football.
We watched ESPN Classic. We watched old games. And when I would ask my dad, like, why don't we watch new games? He was just like, the NFL is dead to us.
Yeah.
So
Until
1996.
And then and everything mysteriously turned around.
And then all of a sudden, everyone owned camo pants. Purple camo pants.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can imagine the point of time that your dad goes from, like, NFL's dead to us to PSL season ticket owner within 5 months. Just like, I'm in the draft. Yeah, we'll get a couple seasons. Fine.
Well, we can't go get a couple seats right now, so I guess there's only one place we can go.
Where's that?
OTheanthem.com. O The Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the listener line, 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
443-219-7595. Don't forget the email, Corey at OTheanthem.com.
340 episodes in. You'd think that by this time, you nailed the transition.
Yeah.
It's just everything that comes after the transition.
You know what the problem is sometimes? I feel like, do you ever worry that, like, you're worried so much about getting the transition right that you're just like, oh, I know the rest of it. I do that every single week. I couldn't possibly get it wrong. And then all of a sudden,
I don't know if you noticed.
Here I am just like,
I don't have those kind of stressors. 3 seconds before the camera came up, I was straining for a drink over the counter and then slid into place like, hey, professional.
So,
sorry, guys.
You can find more of me at my website, CoreyBakerFilmmaker.com, Facebook.com/CoreyBakerFilm, and at LegendsCB5 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I was promising new material.
I think last week you promised new material.
I have signed up for an HBO Max account, so so my plans are now in order here. I just didn't have time to watch the select movie.
Big spender.
But that will be coming shortly, so enjoy.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, if you're looking for some stuff to watch on HBO Max, Corey, you can check out my movie reviews, Everyman Movie Review. 2 episodes a week, every single week. At least 3, maybe 4 of those have been from HBO Max. But we do all the streaming services, Amazon, Netflix. Latest episode to go up was Dora the Explorer, Dora and the Lost City of Gold, which went up on Sunday. Before that, Motherless Brooklyn. Before that, the one that I forgot last week, The Night Clerk. We're doing a set right now of actors that we know from certain roles in different roles that are very different than the ones we know them from. Started with Daniel Radcliffe in Guns Akimbo, and most recently was Isabella Merced in Dora the Explorer, who we saw most recently after that as the daughter in Sicario. So she goes from like the daughter in Sicario to Dora the Explorer. Very weird.
She's also had some interesting TikTok or interesting Instagram content to try and break the Dora thing from her.
Interesting is one way to put it. Yes. So after we do this set of 4, then we're going to move on and we're going to have another couple sets of themes of movies. So make sure you're checking out youtube.com/Rob Cheek for more of that. If you want something more frequently than twice a week, I also have a daily podcast. It's Rob Explains. You can find that at anchor.fm/Rob Explains, or it's available wherever fine pods are casted, including now Apple Podcasts. So it's now fully available everywhere. Make sure you check it out. We have episodes coming up on Bubble Wrap and the 1908 Olympics, where the Russian national team allegedly showed up 2 weeks late. Did they? Well, you can find out there. And maybe if I can get some people around here to produce some content, I'll have some guest people coming in with their topics of choice. We'll see how that works out. But you can find more of that at robertandcheek.com. You'll find links to all the stuff that I'm doing there, as well as the books which are available on Amazon.
Buy Rob's books.
And, look for more stuff. Always looking for more ideas and stuff to produce. Of course, you can follow me playing Warzone terribly at twitch.tv/RobertandCheek. And on TikTok, where I do highlights of my terrible play. TikTok, it's at Robert and Cheek there as well. And Roberto joins me both on Twitch. You can find him on twitch.tv/RTOAZN. You can find him on most social medias, RTOAZN, including TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, which he never checks, despite he's going to have, probably 40,000 unread messages from us? Yeah. So don't try to get a hold of him on Twitter. Instagram is better. TikTok,
We'll make a list of all the social media in which you can be social with Roberto.
Yes. And the list that he's on and the list that you can find him on are very different. So make sure you check those out. A big thanks again for him doing his producing duties today. Hopefully it looks a lot better than when I'm trying to do double duty. So,
well, I think we've done good here today.
We've done something. I don't know if it's good. But as always, you're listening to the O The Anthem podcast, part of the O The Anthem digital network, official podcast of the Sons of Liberty. I mean, the Wolverine. Sorry. Anyway.
Please don't implicate.
Guillotines 2020. For Corey and Roberto, this is Rob. Wait, do you want to give him the disclaimer? Thoughts of Rob's. It does not represent the O The Anthem or the Anthem Industries. For Corey and Roberto, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
One day, I wonder what episode is going to be the one that ends it all for me. What's the one my career ends on?
It's already over. You just don't know it yet.